What happens when the world's richest man sits down with daytime television's most outspoken host? In just 24 seconds, Whoopi Goldberg would deliver the most shocking outburst in talk show history, turning what should have been a routine interview into an explosive battleground that left viewers stunned and social media in complete chaos. This is the exclusive inside story of how one heated exchange on The View last night changed everything. The studio lights were blazing hot as Elon Musk walked onto the familiar set of The View, his signature slight smile barely masking what seemed like nervous energy. The audience erupted in mixed applause, some cheering wildly while others sat with arms crossed, clearly divided about the controversial billionaire's appearance. Whoopi Goldberg sat center stage, her expression already stern as she shuffled through her note cards. To her left, Joy Behar whispered something under her breath that made Sarah Haynes giggle nervously. Sunny Hostin adjusted her glasses, preparing for what everyone knew would be a contentious interview. Alyssa Farah Griffin sat quietly, her hands folded, watching as Musk settled into the guest chair. Well, Whoopi began, her voice dripping with barely contained hostility. Look what the cat dragged in. Elon Musk, everybody. The applause was tepid at best, and Musk's smile faltered slightly. Thanks for having me, Whoopi, Musk replied, his South African accent barely noticeable as he tried to project confidence. I'm excited to be here and talk with you all. Joy Behar leaned forward immediately, her eyes narrowing. Excited? Really? Because most people would be terrified to face us after some of the things you've done. What things exactly? Musk asked, genuinely curious, but with a hint of defensiveness creeping into his voice. Sunny Hostin jumped in without hesitation. Oh, I don't know. Maybe buying Twitter and turning it into your personal playground? Maybe firing thousands of hardworking people? Maybe spreading conspiracy theories? The audience murmured, some nodding in agreement, while others shifted uncomfortably. Musk straightened in his chair, his demeanor becoming more serious. First of all, Musk began, his voice steady, I didn't buy Twitter to play games. I bought it because I believe in free speech, something that seems to be disappearing from our society. And yes, I had to make difficult decisions about staffing, but that company was bleeding money and needed to be saved. Whoopi slammed her hand on the table, causing everyone to jump. Free speech? Free speech? You call letting hate speech run wild on your platform free speech? I call letting people express their opinions without being censored free speech, Musk replied calmly. There's a difference between hate speech and speech you simply disagree with, Whoopi. The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. Sarah Haynes tried to lighten the mood. Well, let's maybe talk about something else. Elon, your work with SpaceX has been incredible. Taking humans to Mars? That's pretty amazing, right? Before Musk could answer, Joy Behar scoffed loudly. Amazing? He's wasting billions of dollars shooting rockets into space while people are homeless on Earth. It's the most selfish thing I've ever heard. Selfish? Musk's voice rose slightly, his composure beginning to crack. Advancing human civilization and ensuring our species survives is selfish? Making life multiplanetary is selfish? Yes, Whoopi shouted, pointing her finger directly at him. Yes, it is selfish when children are going hungry right here, right now. Alyssa Farah Griffin, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. But wait, doesn't Elon also work on solving problems here on Earth? The electric cars, the solar panels, the internet access? Sunny Hostin rolled her eyes dramatically. Oh please, don't fall for his act, Alyssa. He's not some savior. He's a billionaire who thinks he's better than everyone else. Musk leaned forward, his jaw tight. I never said I was better than anyone. I'm just trying to solve problems that I think need solving. If that makes me a villain in your eyes, then so be it. Problems? Joy laughed bitterly. The only problem you're solving is how to get richer and more famous. The audience was completely captivated, some gasping at the harsh words being thrown around. Whoopi seemed to be building up to something bigger, her eyes flashing with anger. You know what your real problem is? Whoopi continued, her voice getting louder with each word. You think money gives you the right to control everything? You think because you have billions, you can buy companies, fire people, and change the rules to suit yourself. Musk's face reddened slightly, but he kept his voice controlled. I think having resources gives me the ability to take risks that others can't take, to try things that might fail, but might also change the world for the better. Change the world? Sarah Haynes asked, though her tone was more curious than hostile. How do you see yourself changing the world? Electric vehicles, reducing carbon emissions. Musk began counting on his fingers. Reusable rockets, making space exploration affordable. High-speed internet for remote areas. Brain-computer interfaces helping paralyzed people walk again. These aren't just business ventures. They're attempts to solve real problems. Sunny Hostin shook her head dismissively. Those are just fancy ways of saying you want to make money off people's problems. If solving problems makes money, isn't that a good thing? Musk asked, genuinely confused by the hostility. Isn't that how innovation works? Someone creates something valuable and gets rewarded for it? Joy Behar practically spit out her words. Not when you exploit workers to do it. Not when you union bust and treat employees like garbage. I've never treated any employee like garbage, Musk replied firmly. My companies pay competitive wages and offer stock options that have made many employees millionaires. Whoopi's eyes were blazing now, and everyone in the studio could sense something big was coming. The other hosts exchanged worried glances as their moderator seemed to be losing control of her temper. In the audience, people were pulling out their phones, sensing that television history was about to be made. You want to talk about treating people like garbage? Whoopi's voice cracked like a whip across the studio. Let's talk about how you've treated this country, how you've treated democracy itself. Musk blinked, clearly taken aback by the sudden shift in topic. I'm sorry, what? How have I treated democracy? Don't play dumb with me, Whoopi snarled, her finger still pointed accusingly at him. You know exactly what you've done, using your platform to spread lies, to undermine elections, to give voice to the worst people in society. The audience was dead silent now, hanging on every word. Even the other hosts seemed surprised by the intensity of Whoopi's attack. Sarah Haynes looked genuinely uncomfortable, while Alyssa Farah Griffin appeared to be trying to signal for Whoopi to calm down. I've never spread lies about elections, Musk said quietly, his voice steady despite the assault. I've asked questions, which I thought was allowed in a free society. Questions? Joy Behar jumped back in, her voice shrill. You call spreading conspiracy theories asking questions? What conspiracy theories specifically? Musk asked, looking directly at Joy. Can you give me one example of a conspiracy theory I've spread? The panel fell silent for a moment, clearly not expecting to be challenged for specifics. Sunny Hostin fumbled through her notes, while Joy Behar's mouth opened and closed without words coming out. Well, there are many examples, Sunny finally stammered. Everyone knows what you've done. If everyone knows, then surely you can give me one specific example. Musk pressed gently. I'm genuinely curious what you're referring to. Whoopi slammed her hand on the table again, even harder this time. Don't you dare try to gaslight us. Don't you dare sit there and pretend like you don't know what you've done. I'm not trying to gaslight anyone, Musk replied, his patience clearly being tested. I'm asking for a specific example of something I've done wrong so I can address it directly. Everything, Whoopi screamed, her composure completely gone now. Everything you touch turns to poison. You poison social media. You poison the workplace. You poison public discourse. The studio audience gasped audibly. Several people in the front row looked shocked at Whoopi's outburst. The camera operators were having a field day, zooming in on shocked faces throughout the crowd. Sarah Haynes tried desperately to regain control. Maybe we should take a quick break and come back to discuss this more calmly? No, Whoopi snapped at her own co-host. No breaks. This man needs to answer for what he's done. Musk remained remarkably calm, which only seemed to infuriate Whoopi more. Whoopi, I came here in good faith to have a conversation. If you want to have a discussion about specific policies or decisions I've made, I'm happy to do that. But yelling at me isn't going to accomplish anything. Good faith? Whoopi's voice reached a new octave. You don't know the meaning of good faith. You're a liar and a manipulator. Alyssa Farah Griffin finally found her voice. Whoopi, this is getting out of hand. Maybe we should actually listen to what our guest has to say instead of just attacking him. Whoopi whipped around to face Alyssa, her eyes wild. Are you defending him? Are you seriously defending this man right now? I'm not defending anyone, Alyssa replied firmly. I'm saying we should have a civil conversation instead of a screaming match. Civil? Joy Behar laughed harshly. There's nothing civil about what he's done to this country. Musk leaned back in his chair, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. You know, this is exactly why I bought Twitter in the first place. What's that supposed to mean? Sunny Hostin demanded. This, Musk gestured around the table. This, refusal to engage in actual dialogue. This immediate jump to personal attacks and name-calling instead of discussing ideas. This is what's wrong with public discourse today. Whoopi's face turned an alarming shade of red. Are you saying we're the problem? Are you seriously suggesting that we're the ones who are wrong here? I'm saying that calling someone a liar and a manipulator without providing any evidence isn't productive discourse, Musk replied calmly. It's just character assassination. Character assassination? Whoopi stood up from her chair, towering over the guest. You want to talk about character assassination? How about what you've done to every person who's ever criticized you? How about the way you sick your followers on anyone who disagrees with you? I've never asked anyone to attack anyone else, Musk said, still seated and still calm. I can't control what other people choose to do. Bull, Whoopi shouted, spit flying from her mouth. That's complete bull and you know it. You know exactly what you're doing when you post about someone to your millions of followers. The tension in the studio was reaching a breaking point. Security guards near the stage were shifting nervously, clearly unsure if they needed to intervene. The audience was completely silent, afraid to even breathe too loudly. Sarah Haynes made one last desperate attempt to salvage the interview. Elon, let's talk about your family. You have many children. What kind of world are you trying to build for them? Before Musk could answer, Whoopi cut him off. Don't change the subject. We're not done here. Actually, I think we are done, Musk said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper but somehow carrying clearly throughout the silent studio. What did you just say to me? Whoopi demanded, leaning even closer to him. I said I think we're done here, Musk repeated, still calm but with steel in his voice. This isn't a conversation. It's an ambush. You invited me here under false pretenses. False pretenses? Joy Behar screeched. We invited you here to answer for your actions. No, Musk said, finally standing up from his chair. You invited me here to attack me. There's a difference. Whoopi was practically vibrating with rage now. Sit down, we're not finished with you. Yes, we are, Musk said simply, starting to remove his microphone. The other hosts exchanged panicked glances. This was live television, and their biggest interview of the month was falling apart in real time. Sunny Hostin tried to jump in. Elon, please don't leave. We can have a civil discussion about these issues. I tried to have a civil discussion, Musk replied, still working on his microphone. But civil discussion requires two willing parties. Whoopi's voice reached a fever pitch that would echo through social media for weeks to come. You don't get to walk out on us. You don't get to come on our show and then leave when things get tough. Musk paused in removing his microphone and looked directly at Whoopi. Things didn't get tough, Whoopi. They got ugly. And I don't participate in ugly. The camera captured every moment as the studio held its collective breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity before Whoopi exploded with a fury that shocked even her own co-hosts. You coward! You absolute coward! Running away like a little child when someone finally calls you out. Musk stopped mid-step, his hand still on his microphone. The entire studio seemed to freeze as he slowly turned back to face her. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than it had been all morning, but somehow more powerful. Excuse me? You heard me, Whoopi screamed, her voice cracking from the strain. Coward, that's what you are. A spoiled little rich boy who can't handle being challenged. Sarah Haynes looked absolutely mortified. Whoopi, please, let's just take a breath here. Don't tell me to take a breath. Whoopi snapped at her colleague without even looking at her. This man has been destroying our democracy, and now he wants to run away when someone has the guts to confront him. Musk slowly walked back to his chair, but he didn't sit down. Instead, he stood behind it, his hands resting calmly on the back. Destroying democracy? That's a serious accusation, Whoopi. I assume you have evidence to back that up? Evidence? Whoopi laughed maniacally. The evidence is everywhere. Look around you. Look at what this country has become. What exactly has this country become? Musk asked genuinely. And how specifically am I responsible for it? Joy Behar jumped back in, her voice high and strained. Stop playing games. You know exactly what you've done. No, I don't, Musk replied simply. That's why I keep asking for specific examples. If I've done something wrong, tell me what it is so I can address it. Sunny Hostin shuffled through her notes frantically. Well, there's the whole Twitter situation, and the way you've handled content moderation, and the things you've said about various political issues. What about content moderation specifically? Musk pressed. What should I have done differently? You should have kept the censorship, Whoopi screamed, apparently not realizing how that sounded. You should have kept people from saying things that are harmful. So you're upset that I allowed more free speech? Musk asked, genuinely confused. The audience began to murmur. Some people were nodding in agreement with Musk, while others looked just as confused as he did. The camera caught several audience members shaking their heads at Whoopi's outburst. Alyssa Farah Griffin tried once more to bring sanity to the conversation. Look, we can disagree about content moderation policies without calling each other names. These are complex issues that reasonable people can have different opinions about. Reasonable people? Whoopi turned on Alyssa with venom in her voice. There's nothing reasonable about this man. He's a menace. A menace to who? Musk asked calmly. To people who want to control what others can say and think? A menace to democracy, Whoopi shrieked. A menace to decent society. Because I believe in free speech? Musk asked. Because I think people should be able to express their opinions without being censored? Because you give platforms to Nazis and racists and conspiracy theorists, Joy Behar yelled. I give platforms to everyone, Musk replied. That's what free speech means. You don't get to pick and choose who gets to speak based on whether you agree with them. Whoopi was practically foaming at the mouth now. Yes, you do. Yes, you absolutely do. Some speech is harmful. Some people don't deserve platforms. Who decides? Musk asked quietly. Who gets to decide which speech is harmful and which people don't deserve to be heard? People like us, Whoopi screamed, gesturing wildly at the panel. People who understand the difference between right and wrong. The studio fell completely silent. Even Joy Behar looked stunned at what Whoopi had just said. Sarah Haynes buried her face in her hands while Sunny Hostin stared at her colleague in horror. Musk nodded slowly, as if everything had suddenly become clear. Ah, I see. So you should get to decide what everyone else is allowed to say and think. You should be the arbiters of truth for the rest of society. That's not what I meant, Whoopi backpedaled frantically. That's exactly what you meant, Musk said calmly. And that's exactly the problem. You think because you have a television show, you get to control the conversation for everyone else. We're journalists, Whoopi protested. No, you're entertainers, Musk corrected gently. There's nothing wrong with being entertainers, but let's not pretend this is journalism. Joy Behar's voice cracked as she tried to defend her colleague. How dare you? We've been doing this for decades. We know what we're talking about. Do you? Musk asked. Because in the last 30 minutes, you've called me a liar, a manipulator, a menace, and a coward, but you haven't been able to give me a single specific example of anything I've actually done wrong. Sunny Hostin desperately flipped through her notes again. Well, there are many documented instances of problematic behavior, such as? Musk waited patiently. Such as, well, the general pattern of your conduct on social media, she said weakly. What specific conduct? Musk pressed. The silence was deafening. The hosts looked at each other desperately, clearly realizing they had painted themselves into a corner with their attacks, but had no actual evidence to back them up. Finally, Whoopi played her last card. Get out, she said quietly. I'm sorry? Musk asked. Get out, Whoopi screamed at the top of her lungs. Get out of our studio! Get out now! The audience gasped collectively. Security guards started moving toward the stage, but Musk held up a hand to stop them. Are you kicking me off your show? He asked incredulously. Yes, Whoopi shouted. Yes, I'm kicking you off. Get out! Musk looked around at the other hosts, who all appeared to be in shock. Sarah Haynes was openly crying now, while Alyssa Farah Griffin looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. Well, Musk said with a slight smile, I guess that answers the question about who's really against free speech and open dialogue. He calmly removed his microphone, set it down on the chair, and walked toward the exit. As he reached the edge of the stage, he turned back one last time. For what it's worth, ladies, I came here hoping to have an honest conversation about the issues facing our country. I'm sorry that wasn't possible. Whoopi was still screaming as he disappeared behind the stage curtain. Good riddance, don't let the door hit you on the way out. The camera panned across the stunned faces in the audience before cutting back to the panel. Joy Behar was staring at her hands, clearly realizing how badly things had gone. Sunny Hostin was frantically writing notes, probably trying to figure out how to spin what had just happened. Sarah Haynes was still crying, and Alyssa Farah Griffin looked like she was considering walking off the set herself. Whoopi sat back in her chair, breathing heavily, her face still red with anger. Well, there you have it, folks. That's what happens when someone finally stands up to these bullies. But the audience wasn't buying it. The applause was scattered and hesitant, and several people were already getting up to leave. The damage was done, and everyone in that studio knew they had just witnessed something that would be talked about for years to come. As the show cut to commercial, the only sound in the studio was Whoopi's heavy breathing and the uncomfortable shuffling of an audience that had just watched their hosts completely lose control on live television.